पर मोहम्मद व आले Muhammad salawat. Inshallah, to begin the program for this evening, I'd like to request Brother Zunair for recitation of Holy Quran with Allah salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
Inshallah, I'll be reciting the last couple ayat of Surah Al-Hashr, if anyone wants to follow along. Very powerful ayat that our ulama recommend that we reflect on, especially in these days. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو العالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Inshallah, I'll briefly share the translation of these ayat. It says, O you who have believed, fear Allah and let every soul look to what it has put forth for tomorrow and fear Allah. Indeed, Allah is acquainted with what you do. And be not like those who forgot Allah, so He made them forget themselves. Those are the defiantly disobedient. Not equal are the companions of the fire and the companions of paradise. The companions of paradise, they are the attainers of success. If we had sent this Quran upon a mountain, you would have seen it humbled and coming apart from fear of Allah. And these examples we present to the people that perhaps they will give thought. He is Allah, other than whom there is no deity, knower of the unseen and witness. He is the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. He is Allah, other than whom there is no deity, the sovereign, the pure, the perfection, the bestower of faith, the overseer, the exalted in might, the compeller, the superior. Exalted is Allah above whatever they associate with Him. He is Allah, the creator, the inventor, the fashioner. To Him belongs the best names. Whatever is in the heaven and the earth is exalting Him, and He is the exalted in might, the wise. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim.
Ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. Jazakallah khair, Brother Zunair, for that amazing recitation. Another loud salawat for him, please. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Muhammad Heather for recitation of poetry with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
جب رہا شام کے زنداں سے ہوئے اہل حرم، کیا خوشی ہوتی دوبالا ہوا سعادت کا غم، جس کو ارمان رہائی تھا ہوئی وہ بے دم، ایک ننھی سی لحد پر تھا مسلسل ماتم، سن کے فریاد و فغاں سانس رکی جاتی تھی، قبر سے بالی سکینہ کی صدا آتی تھی، وطن جانے والوں مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو، مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو، مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو، میں کیسے رہوں گی یہاں پر ہے، میں کیسے رہوں گی یہاں پر، یہاں ہے بھلا کون میرا، مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو، مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو، رہا ہو کے گھر جانے والوں مجھے بھی کہیں پر بٹھا لو، شہیدوں کے سر ہیں جہاں پر، مجھے بھی وہیں پر سلا دو، میں بابا کے سر سے لپٹ کر سفر کاٹ لوں گی یہ سارا مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو نہ یوں چھوڑ کر جاؤ اماں مجھے شامیوں کے سہارے یتیمی کی ماری ہوئی کو ستایا بہت ظالموں نے بہت خوف آتا ہے مجھ کو تمہیں واسطہ سیدہ کا مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو سنا ہے کہ واپس ملے ہیں تمہیں شمر سے میرے گوہر بھلا کیا کرو گے تم ان کا اگر رہ گئی میں یہاں پر انہیں بھی امانت سمجھ کر یا دفنا دو زندان میں یا مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو مجھے بھی وطن لے چلو بر محمد والے محمد صلوات
Jazakallah khair, Brother Muhammad Heather, for that amazing recitation. Another loud salawat for him, please. At this time, I'd like to request Brother Amir Heather for recitation of poetry with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
کربلا میں قیامت کا ایک شور ہے قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے کوئی روتی ہے اپنے جوان لال کو رو رہی ہے کوئی کم سخن کے لیے قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے قبر سرور پہ رو کہ بہن نے کہا کیا بتاؤں کہ بھائی یا ستم کیا ہوا کوفہ و شام میں ہوں پھری بے قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، قصر ظالم کبھی قید خانہ کبھی نوک نیزہ کبھی تازیانہ کبھی، کون سی تھی اذیت جو دی نہ گئی، ہر جفا تھی اسیر محن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، 6 مہینے کی جان اصغر بے زبان ہو گیا کربلا کی زمین میں نہاں، سوئے جنگل میں اب جا کے ڈھونڈوں کہاں، ماں تڑپتی ہے اس گل بدن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، جب چلے تھے مدینے سے سب ساتھ تھے، اون و جعفر تھے اکبر تھے عباس تھے، جا رہی ہوں مدینے تو کوئی نہیں، اب مصیبت فقط ہے بہن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، بین کرتی تھی یہ بانو شاہدی، میں کہیں رہ گئی میرا اصغر کہیں، گود خالی ہے میری سکینہ نہیں، مر گئی قید میں وہ وطن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، اور اپنی بربادیوں کو گوارا کیا، خون میں ڈوبے گلوں کا نظارہ کیا، دے دیا فاطمہ کا بھرا گلستان، کربلا تیرے اجڑے چمن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، کوئی چادر نہ تھی کیسی بے داد تھی، ہاتھ ہوتے ہوئے بھی نازاد تھی، کتنی مجبور کر دی گئی تھی بہن، اپنے بھائی کے دفن و کفن کے لیے، قافلہ جا
Jazakallah khair, Brother Amir Heather, for that amazing recitation. For all of our reciters from Quran to poetry on this mournful day, another loud salawat, please. At this time, I'd like to request our last reciter for recitation of poetry, Brother Zunair, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیبیاں، کربلا سادات کربلا، چہلم کو کربلا میں جب آئی وہ بیویاں، سادات کربلا، سادات کربلا. کچھ بیویاں یہاں ہیں، کچھ بیویاں وہاں، کرتی ہوئی فغاں، بکھری ہوئی تھی مقتل سرور میں جا بجا، سادات کربلا. ایک بی بی دشت خونی میں جاتی ہے نہر پر، کہتی بچشم تر، عباس دینے آئی ہوں پرسا سکینہ کا، سادات کربلا. گھٹ گھٹ کے لاڈلی تیری زندان میں مر گئی، تربت وہیں بنی. بھیا وہ قید سے نہ ہوئی مر کے بھی جدا، سادات کربلا. اکبر کی قبر پر یوں ہوئی لیلا نوحہ گر، دیکھا نہ سال بھر. آئی ہوں قید شام سے اب ہو کہ میں رہا، سادات کربلا. بانو یہ بین کرتی تھی اے میرے بے زبان، ماں ڈھونڈے اب کہاں، بتلا دے ہے کہاں میرا اصغر اے کربلا، जिंदा में मुझसे तेरी अमानत हुई जुदा सादात करबला रोते हैं खासो आम तेरा सुन के ये कलाम ऐ शाह के गुलाम नौहा तेरा अनीस है मकबूल भाई का सादात करबला चहलुम को करबला में जब आई वो बीबियाँ सादात करबला बर मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि
Jazakallah khair, Brother Zunair. Another loud salawat for him, please. Respected Sheikh, brothers, sisters of faith, Assalamu alaikum. Condolences to the Imam of our time on the tragedy of Karbala and its remembrance on this 40th day. A journey that began with 72 slain martyrs on the plains of the deserts of Karbala and whose women and children were taken as captives. Sayyidah Zainab Salamun Alayh acted like Abbas on that day and throughout this journey, making our father Amir al-Mu'mineen very proud. Left with so many women and children. However, upon returning to the land of Karbala, she had to admit, while she was mourning her brother for the first time, in so long that she could not return his sweet little princess Suqaina to him, who perished in the prison of Sham due to the tortures of the Zalim. May the Imam of our time therefore be pleased with our cries, our lamenting, and the mourning of his holy grandfather throughout these last 40 days and 40 nights. Inshallah, before I request Sheikh Mahdi to begin the amal for this evening with Ziyarat-e-Arbaeen, just a few reminders. First, please note that the amal for Arbaeen will be projected on our screens, but will also sent as a WhatsApp announcements early on. Please feel free to follow as you wish. Programs will resume next weekend, September 1st and September 2nd, for commemoration of 28th Safar. Please look for more details on our WhatsApp announcement. We would also like to remind mothers with young children to utilize the dedicated mother's room for their ease and to minimize disturbances in the main hall during the program. This room has a live feed and has been set up so our kids can be accompanied by their mothers and get accustomed to sitting and listening to the program in a lighter and less restrictive setting. With this, we hope to bring ease to our program's attendees and mothers for these upcoming nights. Please, just a kind reminder, there is no food or drinks in the main hall aside from water. Please note that the City of Cafe will be closed during programs and that the barak will be distributed in a to-go fashion. As space does become populated tonight, as it was last night, there is an overflow space designated upstairs for both brothers and sisters. Fathers may also use this space as a father's room. In order to avoid disturbing Sheikh's speech as well as the program, we will be displaying a please move forward sign on the TV and LED wall. Please move forward when this sign is displayed. Alhamdulillah, throughout these programs, many people have been paying attention to this and we are able to accommodate the overflowing population without disturbing Sheikh's speech. Jazakallah to all those who have donated to the City of Knowledge during these holy days. Please note that we don't do any active fundraising in between programs. It is therefore requested to all those who can, please help us reach our goal and donate as much as you can. Please don't forget to register, as your participation is crucial to the success of our programs. Registering through the link sent ahead will help us with the accurate head counts for Niyaz. Before I request the Sheikh to ascend the member for the Amal for this for this day, I would like to request that we recite a Surah Fatiha for the Marhumin of tonight's program sponsors. Let us also include our own Marhumin and Mu'minat and those of the Muslim Ummah. At this time, I'd like to request brothers and sisters, please move as close to the stage as possible to accommodate those who will be coming in just a few minutes, as Sheikh ascends the member for the Amal for today, as well as his speech with the loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad.
Let's take a moment to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for all of your marhumin and marhumat, especially the marhumin and marhumat of the sponsors of tonight's program, inshallah, with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So inshallah, before we begin with the recitation of Ziyarat-e-Waritha, I wanted to explain a little bit about the significance of this day and some of the a'mal that takes place on this day. This is probably one of the most common questions that I have been receiving during these days, alhamdulillah, especially with the Arbaeen walk that has become more prevalent in the past maybe 4 or 5 years. So a lot of people ask, firstly, what is the significance of ziyarah of Arbaeen, ziyarah on the 40th day or night, and then also as it relates to the customs that have now come together around the Arbaeen walk and so on and so forth. Of course, this is a longer discussion, but to give just a very brief understanding of it, we have of course been taught through the narrations of Ahl Bayt that ziyarah in any shape or form is highly recommended. And you know this because when you look at the narrations of the Ahl Bayt, they told us to do ziyarah in a multitude of different forms. So they said ziyarah is to go visit the shrines, but then if you can't do that, then they put a number of other options in front of you. So when someone comes up with a number of other options, this is their way of emphasizing that you're not supposed to miss this opportunity, yes? If you can't do it in that particular way, then you try to utilize other methods and other ways to perform the ziyarah, yes? So ziyarah in and of itself, regardless of when it takes place, is highly recommended, and we've heard about this, and we're not going to spend too much time on that. Particularly on the 40th, we have multiple narrations that speak of its importance. We have some narrations that will literally tell you that this is good to do, meaning the narration's wording is what? Like, for example, the famous hadith that we've all heard attributed to the 11th Imam, that of the signs of the believer, yes, is the ziyarah of Arbaeen. This is one wording you find. The other wording that you find in our narrations, which also emphasizes the ziyarah on the 40th, is just the different forms of ziyarah that they have narrated for us for the 40th, yes? So if an imam sits there and tells his companion, when you go and visit the shrine of the third imam on the 40th, recite this dua, this is his way of encouraging the ziyarah on the 40th. So when you put together these narrations, you find a body of hadith that specifically encourage the ziyarah on the 40th, yes? Now, the Arbaeen walk in particular is a little bit of a longer discussion because of course the Arbaeen walk is not something that existed during the time of the Ahl Bayt. So what I call, inshallah, this is a topic we'll discuss in detail maybe about around a year from now. Next Muharram, inshallah, we'll go into a lot of detail on this. But the Arbaeen walk is actually a very beautiful combination between religious elements and cultural elements coming together. You know, usually we talk about culture, we use it in a negative sense, yes? We speak of culture as opposed to religion. Here, when we speak of culture, we don't say culture as opposed to religion. We're talking about culture, which is the platform for religion to reach people. See, there's a difference, yes? There's times culture opposes religion, so then you have to get rid of that culture and so on and so forth. There are times where culture becomes that platform, that foundation through which people practice their religion. The Arbaeen walk is a very beautiful mixture of culture and of religion, meaning it has religious roots, it has cultural roots. They have come together and they've created this scene now, yes? This scene that is so magnificent, by the way, still all the media outlets in the world are extremely quiet about, yes? Anywhere else in the world, if you found, forget about 20 million, if you found 1 million, 2 million people coming together for something, everyone and every news media outlet would be talking about this. Why is this? It has religious reasons, and of course it has political reasons as well. There's a multitude of different reasons here. So this is as it relates to the Arbaeen walk. As it relates to the ziyarah on Arbaeen, like I said, firstly, ziyarah in general is recommended. On the 40th of the martyrdom, specifically recommended within our narration. So this dua that we're going to be going through, today we're going to recite the ziyarah that the 6th Imam, Al-Imam As-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, recommended to his companion, and it's mentioned in some of our earliest sources. This is very important. Sometimes ziyarats don't come from early sources. They come from sources written later. It's a big, important detail that a ziyarah comes from an early source. Yes? The reliability of a ziyarah that comes from an earlier source is naturally higher. Yes? So this is narrated by Shaykh al-Tusi in 2 of his books, and this is where the 6th Imam is telling his companion by the name of Safwan al-Jammal, famous companion of the 6th Imam. This is the ziyarah that he has. A couple of main themes in this ziyarah is what? Firstly, understanding the great sacrifice that Imam al-Hussain made and the impact that that had on humanity. So we don't look at what Imam al-Hussain did just in the sense and the context of 1400 years ago. We look at it as that point of light in the history of mankind. You know how we look at the movement of the Prophet? We say the world was a dark place before the Prophet came, yes? In its own way, the world had become a dark place, and the Muslim Ummah had become a dark place before Imam al-Hussain started his movement and made his sacrifice, yes? So, one main theme in this dua, we say, "O Imam al-Hussain, you gave your life to save thousands, millions from ignorance." Say this, Imam Hussain has awoken me, he has awakened you. That's why you're sitting here 1400 years later. This is one main theme. Of the main themes in the ziyarah is what happened to those people who stood in front of Imam al-Hussain. How they sold their akhirah for a little bit of the dunya. Yes? So what happened to these people who stood against Imam al-Hussain on the 10th of Muharram? Some of them we don't know. Some of them that we do know. None of them reached the goals that they wanted to reach. Yes? None of them had that pleasurable life that Shaitan was promising to them along the way. It's another main theme of the dua. And of those main themes was, "O Imam al-Hussain, I want to be the one who's on the right side of history." Right side of history, not 1400 years ago only. Right side of history today. So you keep reading, "Harbun liman harabakum wa silmun liman salamakum." I want to be friends with those that you are friends with. Yes? And I want to be enemies with those that you are enemies with. This war, this constant battle between good and evil never ends. Always continues. Only thing that changes is who's playing which role. One day it's this person playing this role and this one's playing this role. 50 years later, the people just change, yes? The battle between good and evil always continues. This is why the message of Imam al-Hussain is an eternal message, yes? Inshallah, let us begin with the recitation of the dua, and I will go a little bit slower, and inshallah we can all recite together. Afterwards, we'll do Ziyarat-e-Waritha and the 2 rakat salat at the end as well. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu ala waliyillahi wa habibih. Assalamu ala khalilillahi wa najibih. Assalamu ala safiyillahi wa ibna safiyyih. السلام على الحسين المظلوم الشهيد. السلام على أسير الكربات وقتيل العبرات. اللهم إني أشهد أنه وليك وابن وليك وصفيك وابن صفيك الفائز بكرامتك. أكرمته بالشهادة وحبوته بالسعادة واجتبيته بطيب الولادة وجعلته سيدا من السادة وقائدا من القادة وضائدا من الذادة وأعطيته مواريث الأنبياء وجعلته حجة على خلقك من الأوصياء فأعذر في الدعاء ومنح النصح وبذل مهجة فيك ليستنقذ عبادك من الجهالة وحيرة الضلالة. وقد توازر عليه من غرته الدنيا وباع حظه بالأرذل الأدنى واشترى آخرته بالثمن الأوكاس وتغطرس وتردى في هواه وأسخطك وأسخط نبيك وأطاعك من عبادك أهل الشقاق والنفاق وحملة الأوزار المستوجبين النار فجاهدهم فيك صابرا محتسبا حتى سفك في طاعتك دمه واستبيح حريمه. اللهم فلعنهم لعنا وبيلا وعذبهم عذابا أليما. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الأوصياء. أشهد أنك أمين الله وابن أمينه. عشت سعيدا ومضيت حميدا ومت فقيدا مظلوما شهيدا. وأشهد أن الله منجز ما وعدك ومهلك من خذلك ومعذب من قتلك. وأشهد أنك وفيت بعهد الله وجاهدت في سبيله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله من قتلك ولعن الله من ظلمك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. اللهم إني أشهدك أني ولي لمن والاه وعدو لمن عاداه بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله. O Imam al-Hussain, بأبي أنت وأمي, may I give my father and my mother for you. See, these are lines we just say, of course. Then I have to ask myself, am I willing to do this? Is this something I am even open to thinking about? Am I willing to sacrifice like this? بأبي أنت وأمي is a saying. They used to say it in Arabic. When you were willing to sacrifice everything for someone, you would say بأبي أنت وأمي. May I give my parents for you? Yes? Or you would say جعلت فداك. May I give my own life for you? So now the cause of Imam Hussain sometimes doesn't need our life, but needs other things. So am I willing to do this? Sometimes my sacrifice is I have to say no to a job so I stay home so my children are raised properly. Sometimes that's my sacrifice, man or woman, yes? Sometimes my sacrifice is to say no to a haram relationship. Sometimes my sacrifice is to walk away from an argument. These sacrifices come in all sorts and forms and shapes. The ziyarah is saying, بِأَبِي أَنْتَ وَأُمِّي. I'm willing to go all the way to the furthest extent. So then I have to ask myself, this is a question for me. Am I willing? What sacrifices am I willing to make for the cause of Imam al-Hussain, yes? بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك المدلهمات من ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المسلمين ومعقل المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا وأشهد أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع ونصرتي لكم معدة حتى يأذن الله لكم. O Imam al-Hussain, my nusra, my help and assistance is ready for you. Mu'adda means prepared. It's prepared for you. All I am waiting for is حتى يأذن Allah, until God's decree comes. Of course, this is referring to who? It's referring to the 12th Imam, inshallah, when he starts his movement. But the ziyarah is saying what? The ziyarah is saying, I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm strong enough, my faith is strong enough, that I am willing to assist you. All I'm waiting for is the situation to come together, the circumstances to all fall in line. So I have to ask myself, am I willing to do this? And if I'm struggling with smaller things, and I speak of myself, yes, then how am I going to be ready for when the 12th Imam begins, yes? The simplest way of preparing for the 12th Imam is my faith needs to be strong enough so that at least my day-to-day duties I'm taking care of. At least my basic wajib and haram I'm taking care of. And most of us, like myself, this is where we struggle. So, وَالنُّصْرَةِ لَكُمْ مُعَدَّةً. My assistance is ready to go. All I'm waiting for is for you to just let me know when the time is and I'm ready to go. The question is, am I ready to go? Yes? These are ideals we recite in the ziyarah. These ideals, we're constantly reminded that we have to get to these ideals. وَنُصْرَتِي لَكُمْ مُعَدَّةً حَتَّى يَأْذَنَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ فَمَعَكُمْ لَا مَعَ عَدُوِّكُمْ صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وأجسادكم وشاهدكم وغائبكم وظاهركم وباطنكم آمين رب العالمين. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us, inshallah, amongst those who are prepared for these things that we read in the ziyarah, inshallah. We will, inshallah, move on now to Ziyarat-e-Waritha, and inshallah, afterwards, the 2 rakat salat. And inshallah, you will remember everybody in your du'as during these special moments. Yes, good. Yes. So as they're preparing, inshallah, the slides, I'll share with you words I heard from the son of a very big scholar. He passed away 3 or 4 years ago. And I had the opportunities to attend some of his classes and from time to time. Very, very well-known scholar. I won't mention his name. But one thing he said about the Ziyarah of Arbaeen and showing your allegiance to the Imam on a day like this was the following. He said, his son was narrating from him, yes? He said, my father used to say that the Ziyarah of Arbaeen, if you can go, then you make your intention to go. He said, if you can't go, there's no way you can go for Ziyarah. He said, even if you can't go and do the Ziyarah that we went through, yes? He said, at least go somewhere where it's a little bit higher, yes, a little bit elevation, somewhere where there's not a lot of coming and going, and just turn to Karbala and give your salam. Because the person who does Ziyarah on Arbaeen, inshallah, they write him amongst those who will have a good fate. Yes? His aqibah will be bil khair, as they say. Right? So inshallah, we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are written amongst those as well. Inshallah, we'll begin. Yes? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. Why do we give salam to all of these individuals? Because Imam al-Hussain continued in the path of all of these individuals. Hence the ziyarah is called Ziyarat-e-Waritha, the one who inherited the message and the mission of all of these special figures throughout history. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسكها من مدلهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيمه وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. The lines say, now you would throw yourself on the grave of the Imam and you would kiss it. Yes, very similar to what Jabir did. In the story that's narrated from Sayyid ibn Tawus, he says when Jabir came, he came closer and closer and then he threw himself on the grave of Imam al-Hussain. Now imagine visiting the grave before the shrine and before everything. Imagine what was going through the heart of Jabir when he goes and visits maybe the first person to come and visit. Yes? So now you are walking in the footsteps of Jabir. بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض فلعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتهيأت لقتالك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله قصدت حرمك وأتيت إلى مشهدك أسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لديه أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. This is the part of the ziyarah where now you approach the son of the Imam, Ali al-Akbar, which is also narrated that Jabir did the same thing. First he did ziyarah of the grave of the Imam and then he moved to the grave of Ali al-Akbar. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به السلام عليك يا ولي الله وابن وليه لقد عظمت المصيبة وجلت الرزية بك علينا وعلى جميع المسلمين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك وأبرأوا إلى الله وإليك منهم. This is the part where now you give salam to the shuhada. Why is it that when it comes to the third Imam, we say, لَقَدْ عَظُمَتِ الْمُصِيبَةِ, your musibah was the greatest, yes? When it comes to his son, we say, لَقَدْ عَظُمَتِ الْمُصِيبَةِ, your musibah was the greatest, because Karbala, believe it or not, was not just about the pain and the agony and the massacre, yes? It was also about the very high status of the people who were being massacred. This is why Karbala, is a massacre that is never, for us theologically speaking, never compared to anything else, yes? Doesn't mean you don't learn from Karbala to deal with the massacres that are happening today, yes? Both are true at the same time. You learn from Karbala, and at the same time, Karbala is on a different level. Not because Karbala was just pain, because Karbala was more than just pain. It was pain plus the people who were going through this pain. That's what made it, yes, an eternal event, an incident that took place. Let us give our salam to the shuhada. Imagine yourself in Karbala as we give our salam. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه. السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه. السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن ابن علي الولي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله. بأبي أنتم وأمي تبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما. فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. Inshallah, we'll take time for the 2 rakat salat of ziyarah, and inshallah remember all of your hajat and all of those who have asked for your dua during these days and nights. So just so we don't bother the brothers in the middle of the lecture, if you can please move forward a little bit more. Thank you so much. Another loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغه مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فلما دخلوا عليه قالوا يا أيها العزيز مسنا وأهلنا الضر وجئنا ببضاعة مزجاة فأوف لنا الكيل وتصدق علينا إن الله يجزي المتصدقين قال هل علمتم ما فعلتم بيوسف وأخيه إذ أنتم جاهلون قالوا أئنك لأنت يوسف قال أنا يوسف وهذا أخي قد من الله علينا إنه من يتق ويصبر فإن الله لا يضيع أجر المحسنين قالوا تالله لقد آثرك الله علينا وإن كنا لخاطئين قال لا تثريب عليكم اليوم يغفر الله لكم وهو أرحم الراحمين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, a second loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I apologize, they're requesting that we move up again. So one more loud salawat and let us move forward, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A second loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A third one for the love of the Ahlul Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The topic that we'll be discussing tonight, inshallah, is titled Forgiveness in Islam, a New Perspective. The reality is, anywhere you go in the world, if you were to ask people about the concept of forgiveness, certainly they will tell you it is one of the greatest virtues amongst mankind. Nowhere in the world would anyone talk about forgiveness and think of it as something that is negative. And this is why we find in the plains of Karbala, Imam al-Hussain showed different forms of forgiveness at different times. There was, of course, the case of Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi that we all know of. His forgiveness from the Imam in the final moments on the 10th of Muharram. And beyond that, there were other instances of the forgiveness of the Imam as well. It wasn't just Hur who benefited from the forgiveness of the Ahlul Bayt on the 10th of Muharram. There were also others. You find, for example, the story of Zuhair ibn Qayn, who wanted to have nothing to do with the Imam. Not only did the Imam forgive him, Imam took him on this spiritual journey with him, and many others as well. The idea that forgiveness is a virtue that is recommended to us is agreed upon. But the things start to get a little tricky, a little bit more complicated when it comes to implementing this forgiveness within our own lives. That is the question that becomes a bit complicated. Because the reality is, speaking of the forgiveness of the Ahlul Bayt is something that is very simple and easy. However, trying to implement it in my own life, knowing someone who's wronged me and trying then to forgive that person is quite difficult. Many of us wonder sometimes, should I be forgiving this person? What if this person has hurt me and wronged me multiple times? Is Islam telling me to continue to simply forgive him? Would this not make me a naive individual who continues to forgive people and then turns the other cheek and people continue to take advantage of him? Many other times we think, well, this person is getting away with something. This person wronged me. Now Islam is telling me to forgive him, so what do I walk away with? He walked away, she walked away with the benefit of their own wrong deed, whatever they seem to have accomplished, yes? But what did I accomplish in all of this? All the hurt is left for me. All the consequences is left for me. And then Islam is also telling me that you have to forgive this person. So many questions that come up when it comes to the topic of forgiveness. And many times I've seen people talk about forgiveness in Islam, and their understanding of this topic is that Islam wants us to be simplistic human beings that are completely naive. They give Islam a bad reputation because of this. They say, Sheikh, yes, forgiveness is like this and like that. I know it's good, but I don't want to be naive. I don't want to be simplistic. I don't want to allow other people to take advantage of me, and so on and so forth. Therefore, tonight, we want to take some time to delve into this topic, which is fully rooted in the behavior and the akhlaq of our beloved third Imam in the plains of Karbala. And in order to do so, we'll pose the following questions. Number one, what instances do we find in the plains of Karbala where the Imam showed forgiveness to the people, many of whom had gathered to massacre his family? Number two, how does the Quran fundamentally change our perspective when it comes to forgiveness and make it more about your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead of your relationship with the person who had wronged you? Number three, what promises has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made if I can find it in my heart to actually forgive another person? Number four, what do we learn from the forgiveness of Yusuf and the forgiveness of our Prophet when it came to those who had wronged them? Number five, what did the fourth Imam tell his servants when the time came at the end of the year where he would go through their shortcomings and the things that they had missed? What did the fourth Imam teach us about forgiveness in those moments? Number five, what are the three levels and stages of forgiveness in the words of the Quran? And number six, and finally, if I have been wronged or I know someone who has been wronged, should I force myself and rush towards forgiveness, or should I give myself and that person enough time to digest the wrong and hurt that they are going through, and hopefully they find it within their hearts to forgive them on their own timeline? Tonight, inshallah, we will delve into these 7 questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let us begin from here. When you look in the seerah of the third Imam, you find forgiveness is all around his akhlaq. This is part of his seerah. Of course, we know of the story of Hur, the one who in many ways caused the incident of Karbala, because the movement of the army of the Imam was not even going to be stopped had it not been for Hur coming and stopping the Imam. Number one, and number two, forcing him into a direction of a barren land, a land that had no water, had no plants, had no shade, so on and so forth. But the forgiveness of Imam al-Hussein is not limited only to the story of Hur. You also find someone like Zuhair ibn Qayn. The story of Zuhair in many ways is even more interesting than the story of Hur himself. Why? Because Zuhair was a person who didn't even want to have anything to do with the Imam. It wasn't even a matter of animosity. He was just trying to keep his distance. I don't want to deal with all this sacrifice and all of this. You go and do your thing. I'm just going to live my life. So it was this indifference that Zuhair had. But you find the Imam, when it came to Zuhair, what did he do? He never gave up on Zuhair. He sent his messenger to the tent of Zuhair, and historians haven't narrated for us exactly what did this messenger say. And when he came to the tent of Imam al-Hussein, what conversation took place between Imam al-Hussein and Zuhair, that at the end of the day, Zuhair came back to his own tent, let his wife know, I am definitely leaving. You should go back, and I have left you onto yourself, because I am now on this spiritual journey. Imam al-Hussein not only forgave him, but took his hand on the spiritual journey as well. Then you find on the night of the 10th of Muharram, when the Imam shuts down the lights and the candles in the tent, what did he say to the many of people who were still there at that time? He said, I have removed my loyalty from you and my authority over you. If you want to go, go now. He turned to the darkness of the night. He said, فَاتَّخِذُوهُ جَمَلًا. Yes, use the darkness of this night as your camel. This is your opportunity to utilize this. Why? Because if you go now, I will not hold you accountable. This is forgiveness, yes? People who are turning away from him, but he understands they don't have the capacity for this battlefield. They don't have the capacity to sacrifice at the same level as him. So he said, if you want to go, go. But don't stay here, because if tomorrow you hear the call of a ma'asum imam begging for help, asking for help, appealing for help, and you don't respond, there's no more, yes, hope for you on the day of judgment. That's going to be severe punishment. In fact, on the 10th of Muharram itself, the Imam multiple times came to the battlefield, still speaking to the other side. Anytime the Imam speaks to the other side, this indirectly means what? If anyone comes back right now, he's forgiven. Yes, we don't read of many in history who came to the Imam's side. Maybe a couple, yes, Hur, the most famous of all of them. But the Imam all the time was letting people know, if you decide to change your mind right now, the path is open in front of you, yes? Hence, we find this all over the seerah of Imam al-Hussein and in the plains of Karbala. Okay, wonderful. But the reality is, when I want to implement forgiveness in my own life, it is far easier said than done. It is not an easy thing to forgive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this. So let us see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fundamentally changed our perspective on the topic of forgiveness from what we think about when we think about forgiveness. Before we go into that, one major disclaimer. And this disclaimer is extremely crucial because I have seen people left and right have this misunderstanding when it comes to forgiveness in Islam. And that is this. When Islam encourages someone to forgive another person who has wronged them, Islam is not encouraging this person to allow that person to continue misusing them, to continue hurting them, to continue doing injustice to them. No. Islam said when someone wrongs you, first and foremost, you protect yourself. First and foremost, you learn from this lesson. First and foremost, you come back and say, well, I have to manage my relationship with this person now. You understand? I have to come back and sit back and say, well, if this person doesn't know how to handle my trust, I'm not going to trust him as much as I used to. I have to learn my lesson. Islam says forgiveness, but it doesn't mean allow this person to take advantage of you again. None of us, if someone steals a car, for example, none of us go back to the person who stole the car and say, listen, I forgive you. Here are the keys to the car, by the way. None of us do this because we all understand forgiveness is one thing. Allowing that person to wrong me again is a completely different thing. The first one, heavily encouraged in Islam. The second one is not encouraged at all. It is a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you're going against the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're supposed to protect yourself. Now, sometimes you may not be able to. Separate discussion. Yes? But if you can, Then I have to manage my relationship with this person. This person broke my trust, for example. Okay, so now you manage your relationship with that person. Now maybe over time they gain trust again. That's a separate discussion, yes? But Islam doesn't encourage you being weak. Islam doesn't encourage allowing other people to take advantage of you. This is not what Islam encourages, yes? This is clear, inshallah. We'll move on to the perspective that the Quran has given to us with regards to forgiveness, yes? A loud salawat. Allahumma salli. If we understand this, then it is important for us to now look at what Islam had to say about forgiveness. Islam came and fundamentally changed the way we understand the topic of forgiveness. Why? Normally, when someone wrongs you or I, we view that injustice that happened to us in the context of our relationship with that person. Say, this person wronged me. Do I want to have a relationship? Do I not want to have a relationship? Do I want to be okay with him again? Do I not want to be okay with him? This is the question that comes to our mind, yes? Islam came and changed this perspective. Islam came and said, listen, when someone wrongs you, and it was at no fault of your own, you didn't bring it upon yourself, yes? You did your due diligence, but this person misused your trust, for example, yes? Now you have to see it in the context of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Forgiveness is about your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than it's about your relationship with the person who wronged you. Maybe that person who wronged you, you don't even have a relationship with them anymore. Maybe you can't trust them at all. Still, the topic of forgiveness is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a completely different situation. I'll put it this way. When someone wrongs you and it was not at your own fault, you did your due diligence, you tried to protect yourself, but it happens, it's life, yes? When someone wrongs you, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes forward and is dealing with you. Now you're dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala firstly because He wants to see if you're going to be patient with this. Secondly, because He wants to see maybe, inshallah, later on you'll find it in your heart to forgive this person. You are dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's on the other side of the table. You want to give you a better example of this? You know when a little boy or a little girl, they do something wrong, yes? Maybe they throw a stone, they break a window, whatever the case might be, yes? Most of us have done this when we were younger. When you do this, if they come from a good family, what happens? Do the people go start dealing with the little boy, the little girl? No. You know what happens? The father comes forward. The mother comes forward, yes? They say, listen, this young boy is ignorant. You see how he is, you know, he's not mature. What can I do to make it up to you? What can I do to make up for the loss that he had created? When someone comes and wrongs you, even though it wasn't in your hands, sure, it is part of your relationship with that person. But now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to you. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing you. And guess what? With some simple steps, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it up to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and said, when someone wrongs you, now you're dealing with me. I'm in charge of him. You deal with me. That's why the narrations that talk about forgiveness, they all talk about your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of talking about your relationship with that person. That person, sure, God is going to hold him accountable, so on and so forth. That's that. You let him deal with him, yes? But in terms of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, listen, if you can find it in your heart to forgive this person, yes, then I'll do this, I'll do this. It's more about your relationship with Him than it is about your relationship with this person. Hence the hadith came and said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised for you that if you can forgive him, I will give you izzah. I will give you might and power. I will give you pride and grace and honor. Who's giving me all these things? God is giving me all these things. So it's more about my relationship with Him. He said, number one promise I will give to you, if you can find it in your heart to forgive this person, yes, I will give you honor. Number two, if you can find it in your heart to forgive this person, you know what else I will do? You know all of those other blessings you had, you never thanked me for? You know the ones that you can barely count? If you find it in your heart to forgive this person, yes, I will count this forgiveness as a thanks for all of those blessings that I gave you. In other words, God says, you know how you owe me? You know you owe me, yeah? Okay, now's the time to pay a little bit of your debts. Say, Ya Allah, but this person's a very bad person. God didn't tell you to allow him to take advantage of you again. That's separate. Maybe you even cut off the relationship in certain situations, yes? But that's a separate discussion. As it relates to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, if you forgive him, maybe you can pay a little bit of my debt. You know you owe me, by the way, yes? He came forward and said, by the way, number 3, if you can find it in your heart to forgive him, then a lot of these sins that you have that you never asked for forgiveness for, I can forgive them for you. Yes? You find in Surah An-Nur, verse 22, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, forgive. Why? أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Don't you know you're still waiting for me to forgive you too? You know this. This is between me and you. Sure, it's also part of your relationship with that person. But mostly it's about you and your Lord. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, listen, I can make it up to you. I know this servant of mine, he's ignorant. He did something very terrible. But I'm here. I'm in charge. He's my servant. The things that happen in this world are under my authority. Let me make it up to you. Be patient. Maybe if you find it in your heart to be forgiveness, then you've opened your door to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why you find, brothers and sisters, on the 10th of Muharram, the Imam in the plains of Karbala, as much as the massacre continued, and as much as the calamities continued, Imam al-Hussain saw all of this more as part of his relationship with God than he saw it in terms of his relationship with the enemy. You know where you see this? On the 10th of Muharram, Imam al-Hussain spoke to God more, or he spoke to the enemy more. Spoke to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot more. Doesn't mean those people are not responsible. No, they're responsible. But Imam al-Hussain understands this difficulty I'm going through is happening under the umbrella of God's authority. So now I'm dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes? In the final moments when he's going through his difficulty, the maqatil say what? Was the Imam addressing the enemy? Or was the Imam addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He was dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than he was dealing with the enemy. Because this is how he views things. So in those final moments, the maqatil said what? He said, Allahumma anta muta'al al-makan. Oh Allah, you're the one who has the greatest status of all. Azim al-jabarut. Your might and power, uncomparable to anything else. Well, Imam al-Hussain, they're coming, they're massacring you, they're massacring your family. He understands all of this. He prepared for this battlefield. But he knows more than anything else, this is between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Adim al-Jabarut, yes? These final lines of the Imam, very powerful. Shadid al-Mihal. When you decide to do something, no one can stop you. Ghaniyun anil khalaiq. You don't need any of us. This is between me and you. This is my spiritual journey from this earth towards you. This is the beauty of Karbala. Yes? So first thing is to understand this is more about your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sure, that person will be held accountable. Sure, it doesn't mean you have to forgive him immediately. No, we're not saying either of those. Yes? Sure, you have to protect yourself from him taking advantage of you again. All of these are true, but see it in the context between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why we find, brothers and sisters, in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, when these brothers came after so long, maybe 20 years, 30 years, we don't even know the number of years. When they came after such a long time, Yusuf didn't even make the forgiveness about himself. He made it about his relationship with God. So what happened? They entered into the courtyard, yes? The verses that we started our lecture with. فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ. When they entered, قَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الْعَزِيزِ مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرُّ. We're going through a difficult time. Yes? وَجِئْنَا بِبَضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ. We brought a little something so that we could get some food from your end. So what did Yusuf say? قَالَ هَلْ عَلِمْتُمْ مَا فَعَلْتُمْ بِيُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ. Do you know what you did many years ago to Yusuf and his brother? You say, okay, so Yusuf is making it about himself. No. This was just to remind these guys. He didn't make it about himself at all. So they said, أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ Yusuf? You're Yusuf? He said, yes. أَنَا يُوسُفُ وَهَذَا أَخِي. Yes, this is my brother. قَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. God has blessed us. The lines of the Quran continue. Then they turn to Yusuf they said, وَإِن كُنَّا لَخَاطِئِينَ. You know what? It was very bad what we did. In other words, forgive us. Asking for forgiveness. What did Yusuf say? Yusuf didn't sit there and say, well, I don't know. You put me through a very difficult position and all this. All these are true, by the way. Yes? What did Yusuf say? He said, look at the wording of the Quran. He said, لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. You're not blameworthy today. يغفر الله لكم. God will forgive you. God will forgive you. Yusuf, you're the one who's supposed to forgive these guys. You're the one who was wronged. Yusuf understands, but he sees this in his relationship with God. So this is an opportunity for me to grow. Say, يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. God will forgive you. وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Don't worry, He's the most merciful of all. But Yusuf, you were supposed to talk about your own mercy. You're the one who's forgiving. He said, yeah, but God is the one. So they came to speak to Yaqub. Yes, the verses continue. They came to speak to Yaqub. Now imagine Yaqub has cried his whole life. He's gone blind. This is word by word what the Quran says. Yes? Now they came to their father. Father and son, just like each other. Both prophets of God. Yes? They came to Yaqub. They said, oh father, ya abana, istaghfir lana. Ask for forgiveness. What did Yaqub say? Did he make it about himself? No, you know what Yaqub said? He said, Sawfa astaghfiru lakum rabbi. I'll go ask God to forgive you. Yaqub, you're the one who went blind. You're the one who went through difficulty. He said, yeah, but this is part of my relationship with God. Yes? He takes himself out of this equation. He said, yes, I'll ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you. Sawfa astaghfiru lakum rabbi. The Ahl Bayt didn't see themselves so much as part of this equation. They acknowledged the wrong that happened to them, but they took themselves out of this equation. Aloud salawat, please. This is why we see this forgiveness when it came to the Prophet of God himself. After 13 years of prosecution in Mecca, finally, the Prophet is coming back to Medina. So everyone's waiting to see what the Prophet is going to do. 13 years there, and then yes, 8 years also in Medina. How many wars were started against the Prophet and his people? So many. Historians have debates on the number of wars that happened. That's how many times they tried to come and create problems for him. So now, after 10 years and 8 years, nearly 20 years of prosecution, now the Prophet is coming back to Mecca, and he's going to be victorious in Mecca. Everybody gathered around the Kaaba. He's already surrendered, yes? He said, what do you think I'm going to do with you today? They said, oh Muhammad, we expect generosity from you. We know who you are. We know how you do things, yes? We expect generosity from you. What did he do? He said, I will tell you what my brother Yusuf told his brothers. Meaning what? This is not about me so much as it is about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As it is about my relationship with who? With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. You are not blameworthy today. Yaghfirullahu lakum. God will forgive you. But God wasn't prosecuted or persecuted for 18 years, 20 years. Yes, he understands this. But he sees this in the context of this relationship more. Before we continue, inshallah, you will forgive me. Let us recite a salawat and move a little bit more forward, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A second salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A third one with the loudest of your voices. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All right, is this going to be the last time, inshallah? Yeah? Let's do one more salawat so that inshallah we make it the last time, yeah? One more salawat and please move forward. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. One final salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came and made this more about your relationship with Him. Yes? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us the closer the relationship, the more forgiveness. The closer the relationship, the more forgiveness. There are times a stranger wrongs you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, see if you can find in your heart to forgive him. There's a time a relative wrongs you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, really see if you can forgive him. There's a time where a relative and a friend, a person who plays both of these roles, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, let's see what you can do. You have to take your time, of course, yes? Don't rush to forgiveness. That's not what Islam taught. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us, the closer the relationship, the more forgiveness. In the house, amongst the relatives, amongst the individuals who are in the immediate family, the highest level of forgiveness is needed, yes? The forgiveness here needs to be unmatched. But here's the interesting thing. We have it the exact opposite. We have it exactly the other way around. If someone runs into you in the middle of the street, we're very forgiving. We say, no problem, it's okay. If your coworker forgets to do something for you, you say, it's okay, no problem. If your wife forgets or your husband forgets, it's a problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us, the closer the relationship, the more forgiveness. We've done it the opposite. The less the relationship, the more forgiving we are. When it comes to the person who we are dealing with 24/7, because he's made this mistake before, by the way, she's made this mistake before, by the way, we are less forgiving. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, it's the other way around. I know he's made this mistake. I know she's made this mistake before. But if they're sincere, forgiveness. Now in the relationship, husband, wife, children, so on and so forth, you don't come back and say, no, I don't want him to take advantage of me and so on. This is your family. Yes? This is your child. This is your wife, your husband. Now, of course, there's extreme scenarios, domestic violence we've talked about before. That's a separate discussion, yes? But in a normal situation, normal family, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to be very forgiving here. Typically, we're more forgiving with the strangers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you know what? There are 3 levels to forgiveness in the Quran. The first level of forgiveness is what? Is that at the end of the day, when I see this person, I tell myself, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the day of judgment, I'm not going to hold this person accountable. Yes? Just this first level opens up the doors of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon me. Just this first level. But this is the first level. Then comes a second level. That second level is what? Where I forgive this person and then I don't bring it up every 2 minutes. I forgive this person and I forget. Forget doesn't mean I allow him to take advantage of me. And this we already talked about, yes? Forget means I don't forgive and then every 2 times we argue, say, you remember that time I forgave you? You remember that time you did this and that? This is part of the etiquette of forgiveness. This is the second level. So there's afu, that means you forgive, first level. Then there's safha. This means what? You forgive and you forget, yes? With someone who's not going to take advantage of you, yes? And then number 3, and this one is particularly recommended for close relationships. What is that? The third level is I forgive, I forget, and then sometimes in return I do something good. The Quran said, the believers are those وَيَدْرَؤُونَ الْحَسَنَةَ بِالسَّيِّئَةِ. Yes? وَيَدْرَؤُونَ السَّيِّئَةَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ. They remove the bad things, they deal with the bad things with goodness. This works wonders in your immediate family. Yes, with a random stranger, you don't have to go this far. Just forgive them and you move on, yes? But in your immediate family, doing good to someone who has wronged you, small wrongs we're talking about, yes? This does wonders. The Quran said, you go through these different levels to find it in your heart to forgive this person. Ya Allah, it's still difficult for me. I don't know if I can forgive this person. This happened, that happened, this person said this about my reputation, made this comment, accused me of this, so on and so forth. The things that happen in life are a whole spectrum. It's all sorts of wrongs that people do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, let us make it a little bit easier. Point number 1, to make this forgiveness easier for you, is that you always have to understand where that person is coming from. See, when people wrong you, it's not always because they are inherently evil. Sometimes it's because they're insecure. Sometimes it's because they're jealous. Sometimes because a lot of different reasons. When someone harms you, Sometimes it's because someone can't control their anger. Sometimes it's because someone didn't work on their patience from a young age. It's for a whole multitude of different reasons. Sometimes it's because this person had a very particular sensitivity, and guess what? You pointed to that sensitive issue, and they wronged you. They're not justified in wronging you, yes? But understand where that person is coming from. You know where this works wonders? When it comes to your own parents. How many times do we sit back and look at our parents and say, you did so much for me, but this one you should have done like this, and this one you should have done like this, and this one you yelled at me, you shouldn't have yelled at me, yes? And this one, you disciplined me in this way, you shouldn't have disciplined. Yes, of course. Parents, hopefully you'll always remember this line from me, yes? Parents are basically you plus 20, 30 years. It's not like they came from the skies and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them infallible and no, it's not like that. They have their own shortcomings. They had their own issues with their upbringing, their parents, so on and so forth. Understand where they're coming from. Understand their situation. So, thank you so much. Aloud salawat, please. I got scared for a second. I thought I was getting in trouble. Yes? One more loud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. This sweating, unfortunately, there's no water that solves this. And after the lecture, we have to deal with this, yes? One more salawat, please. Understand the situation of that person. Sure, your parents messed up here, they messed up there. But ask yourself, what childhood did they get? They had issues themselves. Yes, they taught you religion mixed in with culture. Okay, but they did the best that they could have done, yes? Maybe they wronged you in certain situations, yes? But did you ever look at what they were working with? Did you ever look at what they came from? Typically, you'll find they did pretty well for what they had. Whether that is wealth, whether that upbringing, whether that is their understanding of how to discipline a child, for example. Even today, sometimes someone will wrong you and you say, oh, this person's evil. No, he's not evil, but he didn't work on his patience when he was growing up, so he loses it. He's not justified. Not justified. He will be held accountable. This is a problem. But just understand his situation, his own shortcomings, yes? Element number one. Element number two that makes forgiveness easier, well, a lot easier for that matter, is that you have to remember the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has come to you and said, listen, can you find it in your heart to forgive this person? There's going to come a time where you're going to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, can you find it within your heart to forgive me? There's going to come a time where you're severely in need. Who showed this and taught this in the best of ways? The fourth Imam, Al-Imam As-Sajjad, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. What did the fourth Imam used to do? He used to, throughout the year, the servants that worked in his house, he used to write down the shortcomings that they had, yes? And of course, these shortcomings, they would, yes, start to add up over the months and the years. And the Imam would make a note of them. Why was he making a note for them? Because he wanted to use it as a learning moment, yes? So what did he do? Every year, at the end of the year, maybe the month of Ramadan would come around, and he would have the servants come and stand there. Then he would hand to each of them, yes, a little writing of some of their shortcomings, mistakes, so on and so forth. Then he would say, listen, I'm going to tell you some things. I want you to repeat these things back to me. He said, each of you look at your pieces of paper. These are the shortcomings that you had in the previous year, yes? Now, I'm going to say this line. You say it back to me. This is the humility of Zainul Abidin. This is something we don't even understand, yes? He said, now, I'm going to tell you something. You repeat it back to me. You tell me, O Ali ibn al-Hussain, O the one who has his servants standing in front of him, and he has counted their shortcomings. There's a day that's going to come where you're going to stand in front of God. God is going to count your shortcomings just like this. He would say this line. The servants tell him back. Said then, tell me this line. O Ali ibn al-Hussain, the same way your servants right now are hoping that you find it within your heart to forgive them, there's going to come a day where you are extremely desperate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you. The same way your servants today know that they're going to be disciplined if they're not forgiven, there's going to come a day where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds the right to punish you if He doesn't forgive you. Yes, every time it becomes difficult to forgive, brothers and sisters, just remember how many times you broke your promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me remember how many times I broke my promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Trust me, it becomes very easy to forgive when you remember how many times He has done the same for you and I. Final point, and we will wrap up. If someone has wronged me, especially if it's recent, especially if that wrong and injustice that happened was a big thing, should I rush to forgiveness? Should I push myself to forgive? Should I go to someone who has been wronged and say, listen, you better forgive, otherwise you're going to be in trouble with God? No. This is not the teaching of Islam. How many times have I gotten this question? People say, you know what, someone wronged me, but they're telling me, if you don't forgive, God might punish you. No. This is bonus. Forgiveness is bonus reward, yes? It's your right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it in front of you. He wants you to do this willingly, voluntarily, between you and Him. And many times when the wrong that happened, the injustice that happened, you need time to digest. This is part of the healing process. Now, some people like the Ahl Bayt, their faith was so strong they could forgive immediately. I mean, this is something else we don't even understand. Imam al-Hussain didn't say to Hur, you held us here in the middle of the desert. I need a couple months, I need a couple years to sit with this. But that's the Ahl Bayt. They have that type of thing. And if you're like that, wonderful. That's good for you. That's amazing. Yes? But you and I, usually, we need some time to sit with it. Don't rush people. Oh, this happened. You should forgive him. Otherwise, you're in trouble. No, who said that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, see if you can find it in your heart to forgive. The sooner the better, of course. Doesn't mean He can take advantage of you again. No. This is between me and you. Never rush someone, push someone, force someone to forgive. If they forgive one at a time, when they are not ready to forgive. If they forgive a wrongdoing before they were ready, you know what happens? It starts to show itself later. It will come back later. Because the forgiveness was not a serious forgiveness. They didn't have a moment to sit between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, oh Allah, this person wronged me. I'm going to protect myself moving forward. But this person wronged me. Between you and me, I have so many shortcomings myself. I have so many issues myself. The bigger the wrong, the more you will bless me. That person has to have that moment, yes? To sit with the wrong that has happened to them. Never make it an obligation upon someone to forgive. They need time. This is part of the healing process. Inshallah, the bigger the hurt, sometimes the more time is needed. Sometimes it might take years before this person is even open to discussing forgiveness. Yes? I was talking to a family, yes, not too long ago. This young man had done some terrible things, yes? Talking to the young lady. The young lady said, you know, this is the problem, that's the problem. I said, okay, well, you have to protect yourself, yes? You have to move on, protect yourself. She said, yes, but they're telling me I have to forgive him. I said, whoever's telling you that you have to forgive him now doesn't know what they're talking about. No, this is your right. Maybe you forgive in a month, in 2 months. Right now, you have to take care of yourself. Not right now, you have to focus on yourself. Inshallah, when you sit with this injustice that happened to you, maybe over a multitude of time, you become open to forgiveness. And when that happens, it's still a bonus between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then open His doors of mercy upon you. This is why the Imam, every step in the plains of Karbala, he was open to forgiveness. Yes? Where do we see this? In the greatest manner of all, on the night of the 10th of Muharram. When the 10th, the lights were turned off. Imagine forgiving in this situation. When your family is in the greatest need of all. When your children are in the greatest need of all. Imagine forgiving when you know tomorrow you will call for help and there will be no one to help you. This forgiveness is something else. The Ahl Bayt, something else. And on that night, the Imam turned off all the lights, all the candles. He said, people, I have removed my dhimmah from you. I've removed my authority from you. If you want to go, you can go. This is the forgiveness of the Imam on one hand. This is also the ghurbah. the loneliness of Imam al-Hussain in the plains of Karbala on the other hand. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Ibn Rasulillah. Let us take our hearts, brothers and sisters, now to the city of Medina. You know why I say this is the city of Medina, not the city of Kufa, not the city of Sham, because now during these days and nights, the caravan has begun to make its way back, maybe from the plains of Karbala back towards the city of Medina. And imagine how painful it was for this family after such a long time to come back to that city of their grandfather, and the city that was their home, and the city that had promised them safety. Now they're coming back, but this time when they're coming back, they have lost so many shuhada on the way. They have lost so many martyrs on the way. Yes, some of those they've lost had very small bodies. Some of those that they lost had bigger bodies. Some of them were old, some of them were young. This family has sacrificed in so many different ways. The narration says the caravan of the Ahlul Bayt, when they got closer and closer back to the city of Medina, then all of a sudden the daughter of Imam Ali, she started to recite some lines. Kulthum started to recite some lines. She said, "O Medina, Medina to Jaddina, O the city of our grandfather, La taqbalina, don't try to welcome us. Don't try to embrace us. فَبِالْحَسَرَاتِ وَالْأَحْزَانِ جِينَا, because we have come with so much pain. We have come with so much sadness. We have come with so much calamities and difficulty." The narration says Imam al-Sajjad, when he saw Medina from far away, he stopped the caravan. He said, "We will not enter Medina just like this. We have to have the people of Medina come out to hear what happened to our family." The narration says he turned to Bashir. He said, "Bashir, go to Medina. Tell people that they have killed Hussain. Tell people that they removed his head from his body. Tell people that he was still thirsty in those final moments. Tell them to come out so we can tell them what happened in the plains of Karbala." Bashir went into Medina. He said, "Ya ahla Yathrib la muqama lakum." O people of Medina, what are you waiting for? The caravan of Ahl Bayt has come. The narration says everybody ran out, yes? And then Imam al-Sajjad began to speak of the pains of Karbala. He began to speak of the pains of Kufa and Sham. And he said this one line that breaks our hearts. He said, "You know, if the Prophet had told them to hurt us, they still wouldn't have hurted us the way they did. If the Prophet had encouraged them to disrespect us, they still wouldn't have done this to this level that they did." And then the narration continues, and Imam al-Sajjad speaks of all of their calamities. But I want to draw your attention to two women who might have met when the people of Medina came out to meet the caravan. We don't know if this happened historically, but maybe Baneen in this people of Medina must have made her way out, yes? Because Baneen must have heard that someone has news of Hussain. Someone has news of Abul Fadl Abbas. Someone has news of Ali al-Akbar. Maybe Baneen came out and met with Zainab. Imagine those moments when Zainab finally meets Baneen. And Baneen says, "Zainab, I see you've gotten so old. I see this trip has made things so difficult for you." And Zainab says, "Yes, Baneen, let me tell you about your sons. Let me tell you about Abbas, and let me tell you about the other ones." But Baneen keeps asking, "Why don't you tell me about Hussain? What happened to my son Hussain? You know, when you were there, my heart did skip a beat a little bit. I had a feeling some terrible things were happening in Karbala." And as much as Zainab says, "Let me tell you about Hussain," Baneen has other questions, yes? Maybe Baneen began asking, "What happened to Ali al-Akbar? I heard when he went to the battlefield, Hussain couldn't hold it together anymore. Hussain kept crying in front of the tents. Is this true, Zainab?" And Zainab says, "Yes, this is true." "Oh, Zainab, is it true that Qasim was going to the battlefield, but they couldn't find any armor for him? The armor was too big for him. And when he was in the plains of Karbala, he was digging his feet in the sands of Karbala, and his uncle came running. Is this true, Zainab, what I've heard?" And Zainab says, "Yes, this is true." let me tell you about Abbas. But al-Baneen doesn't want to hear Abbas. You know, maybe al-Baneen wanted to hear the most about one of these shuhada, yes? Maybe al-Baneen turned to Zainab and said, there was a little 6-month-old with you as well, yes? Maybe Ali al-Asghar was with you. What happened to Ali al-Asghar? I've heard of horrific things that happened to Ali al-Asghar. Is it true Hussain came to the tent to pick him up, to say his final farewell, to ask for a little bit of water, and the 3-headed arrow came? Is this true, Zainab? And maybe Zainab, in the between her tears, says, yes, Baneen, all of this that you have heard is true. They say Baneen, from that day onwards, she used to go around in Medina. Left and right, she used to recite poetry. وَيْكَ لَا تَدْعُونِي الْبَنِينِ. Don't call me Baneen anymore. Don't call me the mother of children anymore. Because I had 4 lions. They were all massacred in the plains of Karbala. Friends and enemies would come. They would sit at the poetry of Baneen and they would begin to cry for the massacre of Karbala. Nobody recited the masa'ib of Karbala better than our mother Baneen. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Let us take our hearts to the plains of Karbala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the opportunity to do ziyarah of our beloved Imam. With these tears in your eyes, imagine yourself in front of the shrine of Imam al-Hussain and Abu al-Fadl Abbas Bain al-Haramain, and let us give our salams to our Imam. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Everyone. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب. One more time. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل بسم الله. ماتم حسين.
جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جائے گی مدینے جب، اس وقت بھلا بی بی تیرے سر پہ ردا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب نانا سے ملو گی جب ہاتھوں کو چھپاؤ گی، اور ماں کو بازاروں کے حالات سناؤ گی، ماں لہد میں تڑپے گی تیرے لٹنے کا سن سن کر، اور تجھ پہ فدا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب بیمار کی آنکھوں سے پھر خون صبر سے گا، کس جرم میں قیدی ہو ہر کوئی جو پوچھے گا، اس عہد جوانی میں زنجیروں میں جکڑے ہو عابد پہ جفا ہوگی،
ردا ہے ردا لٹی جو دشت میں تھی زینب کی ردا، کسی دل کی صدا کہاں ہو با وفا نہیں کوئی پتا، میری مدد کو آ ہے تو امام ہے بازار ہے سجاد، پتھر مارتے یہ شامی بے حیا گئی ہے میرے دا، تطہیر انبیاء نبی کی آل ہوں کوئی تو دے ردا ہے ردا ہے ردا،
جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام زینب جو رہا اکبر سا نگینہ بھی مٹی میں جڑا ہوگا، الجھا ہوا تیروں میں شبیر وہاں ہوگا، زینب تیرے کانوں میں معصوم سکینہ کے رونے کی صدا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے معصوم سکینہ کا بیمار جو پوچھے گی، ٹوٹے ہوئے جھولے میں اصغر کو بھی ڈھونڈے گی، بابا ہے کہاں میرے کیوں ساتھ نہیں آئے، کوئی تو وجہ ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے رہا ہوگی، جب شام کے زندہ سے خیمے میں کھڑی زینب مقتل میں بڑا بھائی، غربت کی حقیقت میں ایک موت کی تنہائی، اجڑے ہوئے خیمے میں زینب نے گزاری جو وہ رات بھی کیا ہو
یہ تھا حسین الوداع عباس الوداع ہے اکبر الوداع اے قاسم الوداع اے اصغر الوداع اے اون الوداع محمد الوداع سکینہ الوداع سکینہ الوداع الوداع الوداع
جب شام کے زندہ سے زینب جو رہا ہوگی یا حسین یا
زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر مظلوم ایسے گر پڑا مظلوم ایسے گر پڑا تربت بہن کی جیسے حسین تھا گرا اکبر کی لاش پر زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر دیکھو نہیں رہی میرے ہاتھوں میں اب رسن جانے لگا ہے قافلہ اب لوٹ کر وطن لیکن تو بہن شام میں لیکن تو بہن شام میں قیدی رہ گئی کھا کر تماچے سو گئی زندہ کی خاک پر زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر کرتا ہوں یاد رو کے میں منظر وہ درد کا کانوں کے زخم پر جو تماچا تجھے لگا بابا کو تو سے ناپے بابا کو تو سے ناپے صدا دیتی رہ گئی بابا سے ناپے روتے تھے تب تجھ کو دیکھ کر زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر اماں کی طرح تجھ کو نہ مل پائی تھی رضا بابا کی طرح تجھ کو کفن بھی
مل سکا. پتھر بھی کھائے شام میں, پتھر بھی کھائے شام میں, تو نے میری طرح ناکے سے گر کے ہو گئی تیری بھی کم کمر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو, سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر. میں لے کے تجھ کو شام سے واپس نہ جا سکا. بابا کو کیا بتاؤں میں اب جا کے کربلا, کرتے میں دفن کر کے, کرتے میں دفن کر کے بنائی تیری لحد. عابد کو خون رلائے گا یہ درد عمر پر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو, سجاد کہہ کے گر پڑا چھوٹی سی قبر پر. کربل میں چھن گئی تھی تیرے سر سے جو ردا, واپس میں لا چکا ہوں اسے دیکھ تو ذرا. سر پر میں تیرے رکھتا, سر پر میں تیرے رکھتا ردا اپنے ہاتھ سے. افسوس ہائے شام میں تو نہ رہی مگر. زندان کھل گیا ہے سکینہ وطن چلو.
جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لوٹا آئی ہے زینب, اے شہر مدینہ. جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لوٹا آئی ہے زینب, اے شہر مدینہ. جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لوٹا آئی ہے زینب, اے شہر مدینہ. عابد کو کسی طرح بچا لائی ہے زینب, اے شہر مدینہ. جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لوٹا آئی ہے زینب, اے شہر مدینہ. بندوا کے رسن ہاتھوں پہ اور خود بے سنا کے, گھر بار لٹا کے, بار لٹا کے, گھر بار لٹا کے, بار لٹا کے. دیوار بڑے کفر کی ٹائی ہے زینب, شہر مدینہ. جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لوٹا آئی ہے زینب, اے شہر مدینہ. جس شہر میں شہزادیوں کی طرح رہی تھی, نازوں سے پلی تھی, نازوں سے پلی تھی. سر ننگے اسی شہر میں ہو آئی ہے زینب, شہر مدینہ. جنگل جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا
آئی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ
ڈھارتی بہت بھائی کو جس بھائی کے دم سے دل پڑتا ہے غم سے پڑتا ہے غم سے دل پڑتا ہے غم سے آگوش میں تربت صلح آئی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر تو لٹا آئی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا آئی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ تھے اون و محمد جو میری آنکھوں کے تارے ماموں کے دلارے ماموں کے دلارے قربان انہیں بھائی پر کر آئی ہے زینب شہر مدینہ
یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین 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 I saw angels falling for you, and their wings laid before you. Where they walk to your final rest, Ya Hussein. In the city that is yours now, where they whisper and they call out, so they mourn until they find life, Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. I'll remain here without walking, Ya Hussein. In the footsteps of the orphans, Ya Hussein. And my soul is in darkness, Ya Hussein, oh Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, oh Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdillah, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdillah, Ya Hussein. Ya Aba Abdillah, Ya Hussein. بسر حیدر کر رہا ہے تو میرا سید و سردار اور میں ہوں تیرا بندہ یا حسین میں نے صدیست میں مولا اور کچھ بھی نہیں چاہا عشق جو مل گیا تیرا یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین حسین یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین حسین یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین If I fly there as I'm dreaming, will I know him when I see him? Or I've been blinded by my sins, Ya Hussein. In my deep soul's Yazid here, if he leads me, will you be there to give me back this freedom, Ya Hussein? सब चले आए जहाँ पर करने दीदार खुदा का या हुसैन हिज्र में तेरे खजा है शेर में तेरे वक़ा है पास अब चंदे बुला रहा या हुसैन साथ पाँव न दे मेरा सर के पर चलता रहूँगा लुत्फ़ होगा तू बाला या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन बाब दिल्ला या हुसैन या बाब दिल्ला या हुसैन या बाब दिल्ला या
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن عليًا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وأن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنة ورضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد عليه وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Let's take a moment, inshallah, to reflect on the English translation of this dua that we make every single day. In the name of Allah, the kind, the merciful. O Allah, I see the causes of your mercy and the resolve to earn your forgiveness and safety from the fire and from every difficulty and success through heaven, and your pleasure in the land of peace and the neighborhood of your Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. O Allah, we have no blessing but from you. There is no God but you, and I seek your forgiveness and turn to you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. وأن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي فأجول في طلبه البلدان فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران لا أدري أفي سهل هو أم في جبل أم في أرض أم في السماء أم في بر أم في بحر وعلى يدي من ومن قبل من وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله واجعل يا ربي رزقك لي واسعا ومطلبه سهلا ومأخذه قريبا ولا تعنني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله وجد على عبدك بفضلك إنك ذو فضل عظيم. In the name of Allah, the kind, the merciful, O Allah, I have no knowledge of the sources of my livelihood, and I search for it by the thoughts that spring in my heart. So I wander in search for it through the cities like a confused traveler. I do not know whether it is on the plains or on the mountains, under the ground or in the sky, on land or on seas, and in whose hands and from whose hand I shall obtain it. And I know that its knowledge is with you and its sources are in your hands, and you are the one who distributes it by your grace and make it possible through your mercy. O Allah, send blessings on Muhammad and his family. O my Lord, increase my livelihood and help me obtain it with ease and make it close within reach, and let me not search for it where you have not destined it for me. Surely you are too gracious to punish me, and I am in need of your mercy. So send blessings on Muhammad and his family, and be generous to your servant by your grace. Surely your grace is great. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين. السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله